provide some information and some training and an overview of Document Store and what those migrations are going to look like. Sorry, I see a couple more people joining. All right. Well, after today's session, we hope that, or the goal, excuse me, is that you will understand document store architecture, storage impact, and migration planning. You're going to be able to review those migrations. Sorry. You're going to be able to review those migration logs and troubleshoot common issues. We're going to provide you with a demo of Document Store across USAS, payroll, and inventory. We're going to cover how to search, filter, and manage those documents. And you will also be familiar with where to find documentation and support resources. Right. Document Store is a replacement for File Archive. Why are we doing that? Well, the size of the databases for the core applications continue to grow, and those backups are enormous. And when support cases come in, we're having to get those backups, and sometimes it takes a little bit for those to restore. And so by moving the bloat, all those stored documents that are in those core databases out into a separate database, that will drastically reduce those the size of those core application databases. All of the documents from the various applications will all be housed in one location. Document Store is not a front-facing application. And by that, I mean there isn't a separate login screen. There isn't a separate set of credentials. You're going to access all of your documents from within the existing applications like you do now through the File Archive, but it'll be under a different menu option called Document Storage. And under the hood, the tool that we're using allows for enhanced search capabilities, not only of the documents, but of their content. So we're really excited to be able to make this available to you. So let's talk just a little bit about Elasticsearch and what it is. It is a RESTful, JSON-based NoSQL database that is optimized for performing searches. When documents are stored in a Document Store, the data is sent to Elasticsearch as JSON documents. The data is broken down into individual normalized words, and then an inverted index is built, and that allows for the instantaneous searching. Its distributed architecture allows for high performance, which is how we're gaining that quick response when the searching is done. And the search capabilities are extensive. Chad is going to help us out here a little bit with hosting. He's going to talk about the hosting side from the Management Council perspective, and I'm going to talk to you about self-hosting at the ITC. Chad?
Good morning, everybody. So if you're currently hosting with the Management Council, our plan is after this meeting later this afternoon, in the service broker, if you go to State Software Production, there will be a checkbox for Doc Store to allow you to deploy that. You would just do that the same way you do if you're deploying a new production USAS or ESS or anything else. And then after you run it, it does have a bunch of API keys that get generated behind the scenes and link it to any applications that exist. So you would have to run the state software maintenance option to restart those applications so that they apply those keys and link up to the document store. Now, if you've already got IppyDippy deployed, IppyDippy relies upon document store to work. So when that got deployed, we would deploy document stores kind of transparently behind the scenes for the IPI-DIPI. So for any districts that have IPI-DIPI, you already have a document store. You just basically need to link USAS, USPS, and inventory to it by running the state software maintenance. And then, checkboxing those applications you want to restart. And don't do that yet because the USAS, USPS that utilizes document store hasn't been released yet. So doing that now wouldn't actually accomplish anything, but wait till those apps come out. So anyway, if you need to deploy one manually, that would be the process. If you want to advance, Jody.
Oh, sure.
So just to ease the burden on you guys, so you don't have to log into the service broker and submit a doc store job for every district you have, basically. We're going to deploy those for you for everything that exists today through scripting. So that will be, I've already started that process and I'll be finishing that up this afternoon for everybody that's hosting. So then when the new release of USAS USPS comes out and they restart automatically over the weekend to upgrade, it's going to all link to document store for you. So that'll take care of that part. So if or you can submit a ticket and let us know when we can restart the applications if, for whatever reason, that doesn't happen like it's supposed to. But if USAS USPS releases this afternoon as planned, then over the weekend it should all apply. It should link the keys, and Monday morning you'll be able to proceed with using the document store with all your applications. So just trying to make it a little easier on everybody so you don't have to go and submit a whole bunch of jobs to do that. Since document store is going to be required for every application out there, it's just as easy for us to deploy that in mass for everything that's currently running. So that's all I've got, unless anybody has any questions. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and if you do have questions along the way, feel free to pop them in the chat or interrupt us. But hopefully we'll get all of your questions answered. So Chad covered how easy it is to get up and running with Document Store in the Management Council. So now I'm going to cover some information for those ITCs that are self-hosted. We've got quite a bit of technical documentation out there. We've linked all of those documents throughout the PowerPoint, and I know Michelle has made the PowerPoint available. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the technical documents. The Document Store Installation Guide is going to be your friend throughout this process. It details installation and post-install instructions. There's information specifically if you're hosted by the Management Council or if you're self-hosted, there's additional information there for you. How to configure the environment, how to link USAS, payroll, inventory, and so forth. If you've already got things up and running for IPI-DIPI, and if you don't, how to link that as well. Script location and setup, and connecting to Nginx if you're utilizing that. The backup restore document store document includes instructions on using SSDT utilities, backup scripts, as well as insight into Elasticsearch, API and curl commands for interacting with Elasticsearch, including creating repositories, taking snapshots, and restoring those snapshots. We are working on some additional enhancements to the document store scripts, and those will be available soon. That's going to really assist with monitoring and will improve the backup and restore process. If I could give a little shout out to Eric at MCOECN. He worked through this process previously and was able to provide us some really good feedback, which we are incorporating into those improvements so that we can make that process easier for you. And then steps for troubleshooting and resolving common document store issues. related to installation or migration. All of those are detailed in the document store general troubleshooting guide. Chad?
We kind of already talked a little bit about this, but if you already have deployed Ippy Dippy in Document Store, you may already kind of be good to go once the USAS and USPS inventory that supports Document Store goes. So again, I would say, on Monday, once that's released, go ahead and try enabling Document Store modules. The way that we're kind of getting a little ahead. I think Jody and Michelle are going to talk about how you actually implement the Document Store in the application and do the migration. But go ahead and try that, and if it works, awesome, you're good. If it doesn't, you can run that state software maintenance from the service broker, and that will make sure that it restarts everything and links them up to the already deployed Document Store.
All right. For the self-hosted ITCs, there is a section in the document store installation guide under the instructions for self-hosted ITCs that details the USAC payroll and inventory setup. So you'll want to see that information. If you're already using document store with Ippy Dippy at your ITC and you're literally just adding USAC payroll and inventory to that. There's some environment variable configuration, which does require application restart. You'll be updating the Docker Compose override files for USAP and payroll, and then that inventory, the SSDT inventory app properties file for inventory. And just a reminder, each document store network is specific to a single district, so you don't want to have multiple districts on that same network. All right. How long will these migrations take? It's not as a cut and dried answer, but it does depend on a few key factors. How many objects are currently living in that file archive? We've been on redesign now for several years, and then we've had fiscal year CD, monthly CD, payroll CD, all of those documents that had been accumulated previously uploaded. And so there's quite a few objects out there for some of these districts. So that is one of the factors. And then within those objects that are stored out there, some of them are pretty large. And the larger files will take more time, and sometimes a couple of migrations to get migrated, depending on the size. There are some additional environment variable tweaking that needs to happen to help those larger objects migrate in some cases. So that is the second factor. And then the memory allocation that you currently have for your instance. When we were doing test migrations, I did run into a couple of situations where a district's memory setting, let's say, for example, was at 6, and that is great for their everyday processing. Everything runs fine. They don't have any problems. But when I went to trigger migration, there were quite a few errors in the file. And by quite a few, let's say if there's, 5,000 objects, you've got about 5,000 errors. That's a big indication right away that there isn't enough resources because the migration is resource intensive. When something like that happens, which only a couple of times it happen, but bumping the memory for that instance, if you're currently at 6, bump it to 8, and then rerun that migration, and things will then migrate. So how do we find out what those key values are? That SQL query that we had previously provided, which this will also be in the release notes. So you don't have to worry about trying to copy this or getting your hands on it. We've got all of that information in the release notes for you. But running the SQL query from the DBA option under the system menu prior to migration will give you those three values. Excuse me, it will give you three values. The total object count, which you can retain to compare the count of migrated files in that migration log. It will tell you how many objects are currently living in the file archive. The second value you get from this query is the current database size. So if you're running this out of USAC, it'll be the current size of the USAS database. And if you're running it out of payroll, it'll provide you with the current payroll database size. And then that third value is that large object size. So those three values are what we just discussed, being those key factors in how long the migration may take. And this query will provide you all of that information. And I've created a table here of estimates based on test migrations that we've done. We've done quite a few of them here at SSDT and kind of consolidated that data and took a look to see, based on how long the migration ran, what was that total object count, how many large objects were living in that database, and what was the memory allocated to that database. And of these three, I would say the large object size is probably your biggest indicator. So you're going to kind of want to, and again, this chart is included on the release notes, so you don't have to worry about trying to grab a screen grab of it or anything. But if your large object size is less than 4,000 and your total object count is falls in this range, and your memory settings are here, your migration is probably going to take less than 45 minutes. Especially those smaller districts or districts that don't have a lot in their file archive compared to others. The migrations do run pretty quickly. I've had some run in 10 or 15 minutes, some in a half an hour. So it just depends on kind of what is already living in the database in that file archive. So you just kind of want to take those values that you get from running that query, kind of see where they fall in this chart, and then that'll just give you a good estimate on where you think or how much time that migration for that particular district is going to take. I would say from the testing that we've done here, the vast majority of them are going to fall in your less than 5 hours for sure. Probably most of them 2 hours or less. We've really made huge improvements with regard to how long the migrations are taking. I know when we first started doing test migrations, we were concerned about them completing in a weekend. There's a couple of really large districts in the state who have many large objects in their file archive and just lots of objects in general. And the largest district that we did several test migrations on is the 8th largest district in the state. I believe it is the largest district that runs on state software. And gotta pull this up just to make sure I do not misspeak. But that initially was running in 48 hours or more. And I think currently their payroll instance, which does take a little longer because payroll does store a lot more files than USAS, we've got them migrating in 9 hours. So we're not talking days anymore. We've made a lot of improvements, and we're very happy about that. So that kind of leads me to my next slide here. What kind of resource expectations are we looking at? Well, document store is going to reduce the size of those live core databases. So your USAS and your payroll database will definitely reduce in size with the migration. And this is up from what we were seeing previously, but approximately up to a 50% increase in overall storage capacity. That is related specifically, obviously, to the documents that are in there, but the indexes that are created for that enhanced search capability. Those are the two things that are contributing to that increase in size. Now, if you're hosting at the Management Council, and Chad, if you need to elaborate on this, feel free. But I did have conversations with Chad, and he is not concerned at all from the resource side of things at the Management Council. If you are self-hosted and you're close on your storage, this could be problematic. So you're going to want to take a look at that before you do the migration. Now, as Chad said, we are planning to release later today. Just because we release doesn't mean you have to instantly start doing these migrations. Certainly, you can, once the software updates, overnight, you can get started on these next week. But the fact that once the document store module is installed, and I'm going to go over all of this, the documents that are newly generated will start going into document storage, but nothing happens to the documents that are existing in the file archive until a migration is actually triggered. They will remain out there. The file archive menu option remains out there until you have time to take a look at things, address your storage and your resource capabilities and what you need to do. There is no, rush here in the short term. So, take some time, address those concerns, increase your storage capacity if needed, and then decide when you're going to start migrating these files.
Hey, Jody.
Yes.
I have just one question on that then. Since if the Ippy already has DocStore installed, then come Monday, will those new reports and things start going to DocStore, even though we haven't started any migrations?
Are you talking about inside of USAS payroll and inventory?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I'm glad you asked, Sharon. We will be covering that.
Okay.
But
Okay. Fine.
I'm going to answer you right now. So with regard to inventory, as soon as the application restarts, document store is going to be available under the system menu. There is no module you have to install in inventory. And as soon as the release image is applied to inventory, the next time the fiscal year is closed and that bundle is generated, it automatically goes into document store. It will no longer be emailed.
Fabulous.
With regard to USAS and inventory, the release goes out tonight. It gets applied Monday. You log in and you don't see document store. That is because the module within USAS and payroll must be installed first. Then the documents will start going into document store.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Yep, and we're going to show you guys how to do all of that. All right. So regarding migration recommendations, like I said previously, those migrations are resource intensive. So we do recommend running the migrations in the evenings or weekends. We don't suggest that those be run during the workday, just so that it doesn't interfere with the day-to-day processing that the districts need to do. And certainly, while it's not required, creating a backup prior to migration is just a good idea. It certainly, like I said, isn't required, probably not necessary, but it never hurts to have a good backup, right? So, you'll want to make sure you take care of those things. So as far as, the migration execution, like I said, with regard to USAS and payroll specifically, once the image is applied, from today's release, you'll install the document store module, which is done from system modules. And then once that module is installed, you'll navigate to the utilities menu and you'll see a menu option called document storage. And then I've got a little screenshot here. From within document storage, you'll see that there is a migration tab. And on that migration tab is the button to submit the migration job. And once that submits, there'll be a progress bar there that kind of shows you the percentage of completion. And then once the job completes, the migration log file will be visible there in the grid. And you're going to review that for any errors and so forth. And I believe we're ready to show that live to you. So give me just 1 second to switch gears here.
Hey, Jody,
Yes.
can we do more than one district at a time? Like, theoretically, could we go in and start all of these jobs for all of our districts? Or do we need to wait for one job to finish before we start another?
No, you do not need to wait. You can run migrations. I don't know if I would suggest doing all of them all at the same time, but you could certainly do several.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I've got an anonymized USAS instance here, and the release has been applied to this. So I'm going to show you here how easy this is to do for USAS and payroll. So you're going to, from the system menu, you're going to navigate to modules. And as you can see right here, we've got the document store module that can be installed. So you're going to install the module. Making sure to click here to refresh the page. And we can see that the document store module is now installed. Now, before we go over to document storage to submit that migration job, this is what I was talking to you guys about, finding those values that will help you kind of with your estimates on how long you think your district is going to take to migrate. So from the system DBA option, we're going to select SQL. And then we're just going to paste in that query that we're providing to you. And then you click go. And if you have it typed in right, give me 1 second. Grab the correct. By error because this query does work.
Hey, Jody,
Yes.
it's missing the asterisks inside that count. There should be asterisks inside the parentheses for count. I don't know if when it cut and pasted it
Here.
weeded them out. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And then it needs one, like, there's another one there. Yep.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you for that. I'm gonna update I lost them in the copy and paste that I did. See if I've got them all. Okay, I promise the version that you guys have will have the asterisk and that's the first time that's happened to me, so my apologies. But as you can see, when we run the query, it's going to give you 3 columns. The first one is that total object count that is in the file archive. The second column is the current size of the USAS database. And the third column is that large object size. Now, in all honesty here, these numbers are very low. So when we anonymize the data, we drop the file archive because we aren't able to anonymize all the documents that are in the archive. And so for this demo, I had to go in and reopen posting periods and close them so that I actually had files to migrate. So this particular district has, I reopened through June of last year. So I do have a fiscal archive, a calendar year, and then all of the posting periods between June and January. So obviously you're going to see higher values here. So don't get nervous when you run yours, and it's quite a bit bigger than what I'm showing here. But for demo purposes, that's what we've got in this particular instance. So the total object count is 265, and that object count you can then kind of retain for your information, because you will be able to compare that to the object count that you see in the migration log. So now we're ready to come over to the document storage menu option under the utilities menu. And again, after I installed the module, this menu is now under the utilities, and the file archive is still there. Nothing has changed with it, but we're going to go ahead and go into document storage. And from here, you'll click on the migration tab. Once we submit the job, it will run, and when it completes, we'll have a migration log here. There is a column that will show you true or false if it completed successfully, and it also provides when the timestamp on when you started it, when it was completed, and how long it took. The other thing that you need to make sure of, and this will be for when you're doing tests at the ITC level for your or trainings for if you do them, or if you're just doing test runs, you'll want to make sure that user jobs are enabled in production instances. This is already done because all of the jobs are running. But if you spin up an instance to play with this, you're going to need to make sure that you navigate to system configuration and make sure that on the application configuration that your user jobs are enabled. If you don't do that and you submit your job, it will fail. Again, this is not an issue with production instances, but if you do spin up a test instance to play with this before you get started with your districts, just keep that in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this migration job. Kind of show you guys what this is going to look like. And I was just going to click the refresh button, but it already started. So the job has started, and we've got this progress bar here that will continue to chug along, and it will update the percent of the progress that's being made. And I was going to switch over and show you the log file, but I think this is going to chug along pretty quickly here because, like I said, we're looking at 6 or 7 months of files to migrate. So this one did complete pretty quickly, 26 seconds. Even your small districts are going to take a little bit longer than that, but the migration job has completed, and as you can see here, it was successful. And that total object count that I said keep in mind, it migrated 265 objects, and that matches what we saw when we ran that SQL query. So that's just kind of a way for you to say, okay, this is how many objects were in the file archive, and it was successfully able to migrate all 265. So even though the migration was successful, we still want to take a look at that migration log file. So I'm just going to download that. I'm a fan of viewing that in Notepad++, and by default, it wants to open in Notepad. So I'm going to open that up here. So when you run your migration and you're downloading all of these, keep in mind that the file name is going to start with the district IRN. So you're able to locate those when you've got a bunch of them that you're working on. The migration log file, right off the bat, it's going to tell you who ran the job, which username, what time it started, when it completed, and how long it took to run. You're going to be provided with the account of the total objects to migrate, which again is that 265. It's going to show you the error count and any errors associated if you had errors. Then it will show you the warning count and any warnings that were encountered. And then the list of successfully migrated objects will be displayed along with that count again. Once we get to this point, it's going to list out every single thing that was migrated from the file archive to document store. It's going to start with the categories. So in USAS, these categories are the equivalent to the tabs that you see across the file archive. So you've got your monthly report, your fiscal report, calendar, audit, and so forth. Each one of those categories gets created, and then each collection within the category gets created. So because I only had one fiscal year in there, you're only seeing fiscal year 25. Obviously, in a normal district, you would see several fiscal years. And then under the monthly collection for June, all of the documents were migrated, and it lists out each one of the monthly collections. And then you've got your calendar, your collection, and your months beyond that. So it does everything in order. It lists them out there, and then it lists out each document specifically that was migrated. So you can see here that the budget account activity report, and then it gives the ID, UUID for that. I'm going to scroll over so that you can see that it does show me which category this report is in and which collection this report is in, and then the timestamp of the report. Now, this is the timestamp from when the report was actually generated. Obviously, I closed my period yesterday for this training. Your timestamps will match when the district actually generated the files. Now, this is important because when you're migrating, there are several errors that you can possibly encounter, but one of them specifically will be a parse exception, and that exception is directly related to the file being corrupt. If there is a corrupt file living in the file archive, it will not migrate to document store. So what do we do about that? Well, if the district has their old monthly CD, fiscal CD, calendar CD, payroll CD, what have you, wherever this file originated from, if they have a copy of that outside of USAS or payroll that they can open and is not corrupt, this information will tell you exactly what collection you're going to want to upload that into, and you can do that. And we encourage you to do that if the version that is living in the file archive is corrupt and you have a well-formed document stored outside of USAS or payroll that again, you can open, you can view, you can read it, everything looks great, then we encourage you to upload those. If you find that when you go to your monthly CD and let's say, for example, your budget account activity report, you can't open it, well, that report is not going to then be available in document store because the file itself was corrupt. So that is the only case in which a file wouldn't migrate. So just want to make you guys aware of that. And we have seen a handful of, in the test migrations that we've done, files that were just corrupt. We downloaded them from the file archive, tried to open them, and they would not open. Any questions about that? I am seeing a couple of questions in the chat, so let me take a look here. So Kelly Campbell asked if there is a way to scan the files prior to migration to see if there are any corrupt files. Okay, so she said if it bombs instantly, it's not a big deal, but if it migrates for 2 hours and then hits a corrupt file, would we have to start over? The answer is no. So the migration job is going to run and it is going to migrate every file that it can migrate out of file archive and put it into document store. Only those files, and that's kind of why this log file is structured in the way that it is. Only those files that show under the heading of error or warning will still be in the file archive. All of the files that show successfully migrated in this section will no longer be in the file archive and they will show in document store. So you run a migration and the vast majority of your files migrate, but you've got a handful of them in still in file archive and they're showing under the errors and warnings. And maybe it's because they're corrupt, or maybe it's because we've run into a resource problem and we need to make some adjustments to get those bigger files over. You can run the migration job multiple times, and you can do so until everything that is not corrupt gets migrated. Every time you run a subsequent migration, that new log file will get created and added to the grid. So all of those migration log files will remain out there. And then you download that next file, take a look at what those errors are. And then, and we're going to go over what each of those errors are and kind of what you do about it when you encounter them. So you do not have to start migrations over. If you started a migration and for some reason the application restarted in the middle of it, it will resume. It's a pretty slick process, and it can be run multiple times. Are there any other questions about that migration job before I move on? Any questions about the log file? Okay, so I do have a sample log file to show you that actually did have some errors. So in this particular district that I migrated, you can see that The runtime was 1 hour and 15 minutes and 27.842 seconds. We get very specific there on how long these take. The total objects that I had to migrate with this particular instance was 15,398. We did encounter 2 errors, 0 warnings, and we successfully migrated 15,396, which is a difference of 2. So the math maps. And you can expect that to work just like that when you do your migrations as well. Now, these error messages, it will list, like I said previously, the name of the file, what the exception was, which category it was in, which collection it was in, and then we'll get a root cause error. In this case, we had a couple of circuit breaking exceptions, which I'm going to show you on the troubleshooting guide, how we break out each one of the exception. We give the reason for the exception and what the resolution is. But in this case, and I'll mention it again when I go over that document, if you run into just a handful of these, you can just rerun the migration, and it will run quite a bit faster the second time because there are only 2 files to migrate. And then I do have the results file from that subsequent migration that I ran. Now you're gonna notice that the objects to migrate is 9, and that is because it does go through the categories and then the collections again. But the total objects to migrate matches the successfully migrated, and in that subsequent migration, those 2 reports that failed to migrate the first time did migrate successfully. And you are going to have districts that migrate successfully the first time through, and then you are going to have districts where you run into errors. But I'm going to cover what those errors could be, and what you're going to do when you encounter those errors. So, and just really quickly before I go over that, I do want to show you that the files are now out here. We are in document storage. And I don't want to go too in depth in this because I'm not going to steal Michelle's thunder. She's going to be going over this in detail. But the files did migrate out of the file archive and into document storage. So if I go over to monthly reports now in the file archive, you'll see that they're empty because they're no longer living in the file archive. They've been moved to document storage. All right, so let's go over the general troubleshooting guide. Okay, so out here, as we did mention previously, we've got some installation troubleshooting, but I'd like to highlight our common migration errors and warnings section. So right off the bat here, that circuit breaker error that we saw in that sample file I showed you, we try to provide what that error is going to look like so that you have a visual here that you can reconcile with what you're seeing in the migration log. And for each one of these errors, we give the reason for the error, the resolution, and then if you're hosted at the management council, what steps you need to take, and if you're self-hosted, what steps you need to take. So in particular, the circuit breaker errors generally indicate insufficient resources. Now, I didn't have to change anything with that district that I encountered those 2 circuit breaker errors for. I just reran the job because during migration, it does say if you have a large number of these errors, that can indicate that the heap size is too small. But if you only have a handful of them, they can be ignored as long as a subsequent migration completes successfully. And that is what the case was with that district that I migrated. Documents are migrated in batches, and sometimes that batch size is too large, and it could cause the circuit breaking exception. Migrations can be run multiple times until no files remain in the file archive. And as was the case in my example, running a second migration did successfully migrate those documents. But let's say you do a subsequent migration, or you had a large number of the errors to begin with, then you're not just going to want to trigger another migration because you're probably going to get the same error result. You're going to want to look to the resolution. So in this case, we want to evaluate the resources and increase the heap size of the document store instance. So for your for the folks that are hosted at the Management Council, you'll reach out to the data center team, and then the resources will be evaluated and they'll make adjustments as needed. And then for self-hosted folks, you're going to increase the heap size allocated in the JVM options file. Our second error in the list here are socket timeouts. Some of these examples do look a little different just formatting wise, but if you get an error that says a Java.NET socket timeout exception, that socket timeout value will need to be increased in order to migrate the files that were impacted by that exception. The reason is that the value is not high enough to accommodate the files, and there is a particular environment variable that we can increase in order to allow the successful migration of the files. Again, if you're hosted with the Management Council, the data center team takes care of that for you. You just need to reach out to them and let them know. And this is probably a really good time to interject here. When you do run into these errors and you do see the resolution that says, okay, I need to reach out for some assistance because we need to tweak some environment variables, please, please, please include all of the information necessary to help you so that we don't have a lot of back and forth and we can help you as quickly as possible. So the district, the IRN is helpful. Definitely, if you can attach the migration log file to your ticket, that is very, very helpful. And in a couple of cases, with some of these errors, the application log will also be helpful. I know there's one error in particular that if you encounter it, there will be additional information in the application log. So providing all of that when you put in your request does help minimize the back and forth and helps get those values updated. And again, when these changes need to be made, it does require the application to restart. So if you're running, you run into these problems and the data center operations team does need to make changes, or if you're self-hosted, you need to make changes. You're probably not going to rerun that migration until the next day, because restarts, obviously, we don't want to impact the district and their ability to process during the day. So, scheduling all of that with that in mind. But yeah, making sure that you include all that information is very helpful to us. So for socket timeouts, again, you're going to contact the Management Council. And then for self-hosted folks, the property that needs to be increased, depending on if you're dealing with IPDIPI or inventory, it'll be the properties file. And if you're dealing with USXS or payroll, then it's going to be in the Docker Compose override file. The next error is buffer limit. In this case, files related to these errors actually may have migrated, but might still show in the file archive. So once you, if you see these errors and you review the file archive and you see that the file is out there, but you're also seeing it in Document Store, if you download it in Document Store and everything looks great, then you don't have to worry about that particular file. If it's not in Document Store, obviously the buffer limit was exceeded and it needs to be increased before another migration is run. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but again, if you're hosted with Management Council, you'll reach out to them and let them know about that particular error, and they'll take steps to increase those values. And if you're self-hosted, we've got steps here and the variable that will need to be increased. in order to rerun that migration. This parse exception is the one case that I mentioned previously, the one error that indicates that the file that had the parse exception, that document is corrupt and it cannot be migrated. So again, that resolution is to, if you do have a well-formed document outside of USAS or payroll that you can access, you can certainly upload that into Document Store. But if not, you know, communicating to the district, hey, there were some files here that didn't migrate and they were corrupt, to let them know. We do in the cases that we've seen this, they've been much older classic files. I don't think I've seen a single parse exception with anything that has been generated in our current USAS and payroll application. Let's see here, the illegal index shard state exception. This has to do with the job itself trying to perform an action on a shard that wasn't ready, and that's within Elasticsearch itself. If it's busy working and it isn't in the proper state when another file is being migrated, you can see these exceptions. This particular, I believe, Chad, to correct me if I'm wrong, but this particular, we don't expect to see this with anybody who's hosted at the Management Council. Is that correct? I believe we talked about this previously.
Yes, the automated script that deploys these always sets that, so there should never be one that's in that state.
But if you do run into something like this, self-hosted, you can certainly reach out to SSDT, open a support ticket, and we will be happy to help you. You can assess the health of the cluster, which is in the document that I'm currently sharing. And then you can also use this health API guide to help diagnose the problem as well. But we are certainly here to help resolve these issues. So reach out to SSDT, open a support ticket, and we can help you through that. The next exception is a cluster block exception. In this particular case, the document store instance has exceeded the disk space threshold, and that will just need to be evaluated and adjusted. Again, we don't expect to see anything like this with those that are hosting with the Management Council. But if you do run into this at the self-hosted ITCs, you're going to need to increase the disk space. Transport exception. This is the exception where there will be additional information available in the application log. And I don't see that I have that listed here. Oh, it looks like I need to update this a little bit, which I will do right after this training. But I've got a couple of tips too when searching through the migration log for this particular error. If you filter for specifically errors in the application log under System Monitor, and then you look specifically for the error message that says error saving document store, it will give you additional information that we will need behind the scenes to know what that string length was that when the error was encountered, so that we know what to make, what to increase those values to in order to get a successful migration. So some of these larger documents, they may exceed the string length limit. And in order to work around that, we do have the document store elastic max string length variable that we can increase in order to get that document to migrate. but knowing what the current value was when it encountered the error helps us make judgment calls on what we need to increase that to. So again, this is the use case where if you see transport exceptions and you're reaching out for assistance with resolving those errors, you're going to include your migration log file, but you're also going to include the application log file so that we can pull that information out of there in order to decide what those limits need to be so that adjustments can be made and a migration can be resubmitted after restart. And I apologize to you self-hosted folks. This was here previously, so I must have made an edit mistake. I will get that updated by lunchtime today. You're going to do the same thing. You're just going to, obviously update that value at yourselves. So I will get that in there. And then I'm going to include the information about the application log, how to filter it to look for it, but making sure to include it when you're reaching out for assistance on those transport exceptions. Sorry, I scrolled a little too far there. Rejected execution exception will look similar to this. And the cause or the reason for this is most likely that multiple large objects were trying to be saved and updated simultaneously. And in that case, you'll want to reach out to SSDT for assistance on that, and we will help work through the resolution there. We do have a little miscellaneous section down here. Any errors related to cache file set can be safely ignored. And then like I said previously, if you do submit a migration job, you don't see any errors, don't get a results file, and it's been a while and you're like, what is going on here? The application log will show an out of memory error, and that is going to be the case where the resources for the instance need to be increased. And so you'll reach out in a support ticket, and we'll take care of that if you're hosted at the management council. And obviously, self-hosted ITCs will increase those resources prior to submitting another migration. Excuse me. Sure, didn't miss anything I wanted to share with you. All right. Now, with regard to the SQL query, grab again. It's going to be missing my asterisk. Let me get those put back in here. Now that the migration is run, if we come back in here and rerun this, we can see that the total objects in the file archive are now 5, what the current database size is, and the low side. Now you're going to say, well, I successfully migrated and my file archive doesn't have any documents in it anymore. Why is this not 0? Well, the file archive still has structure. It still has the categories and the collections in it. Even though those migrate, we don't remove those from file archive. So you're not going to see that at 0. Don't expect it to be 0. I know in USAS it's 5. I think it might be 9 in payroll because they had the other tab prior to document store, and USAS didn't. So don't be concerned when this value isn't 0 because it's not going to be, but it certainly should be in the single digits. So I'm going to pause here and ask if you guys have any questions. So again, when you run those migrations, you're going to review those log files, whether they're successful or not. And we reviewed the common errors and warnings section of the document store general troubleshooting page. Lots of great information out there for you. Again, that migration job can be rerun as many times as needed to successfully migrate those files. Each subsequent run will have its own migration log file that will accumulate in the grid. And we did talk about that parse exception for corrupt file. So if there are no questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
Jody, there was one question in chat from Andrew.
Sure. Sorry about that. So Andrew's question is, if the resolution to an issue is just rerun the migration, like in my example with just a handful of circuit breaker exceptions, can we just run the button? Can we just click the button again? Yes, you can. It's that simple. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and turn things over to Michelle.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jody. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So are you all able to see my screen okay? I have the slideshow on here. Great. Thank you. Go ahead and get my chat going here. Okay. I get the fun part. I get to show the DS grid and some of the Elasticsearch features. So let's kind of dig in and take a look at that. The rest of the slides here, I just kind of want to touch upon a couple of them, and then we'll actually go into the instances and take a look. But in here, the DS, the document store grid, I call it DS quite a bit in here. I just have a screenshot of the actual grid, and I have USXS as an example here, and then what each of these icons mean. So this is what we're going to go into, is just talk about these, very similar to what you already had available in File Archive, but we are going to go through them. And then the next slide is just talking about the importing files into DS. I know that Jody had mentioned, if there's a corrupt file and you need to go in and import a specific one into a collection, what are the file formats that it will accept? Or if you're going in and importing other documents in here, these are the valid formats. So we just have a slide on that so you have that information. And then the next slide is just the report bundles that are included. The SSDT report bundles and the custom report and any custom report bundles. So I just wanted a slide of all of those just so that you can see all that information. And then this is what we'll get into here in a little bit. So I'm going to come back to this a little bit later when we get into Elasticsearch and just talk about what you're seeing in there. But I wanted to kind of have a slide to explain, what you are seeing in there so you have that information available to you. So let's go in. I'll go into USXS first. And so my instance is after migration is complete. So document store's obviously been enabled. I ran through the migration. And now I want to take a look and see what I'm seeing here. And Jody did say underneath the utilities, we no longer, the file archive, if we go in there, it's empty. Just like she said, once it completes successfully and everything migrated over, your file archive will be blank. Now, on my test instance, I just generated a couple months in a calendar year, so I didn't have a whole lot of data in here to begin with. But I had monthly archive reports, calendar. I think that's it. I think I just had those, so I didn't have them all. Obviously, your districts will have all of these tabs from the file archive with reports. So my file archive's empty. And again, like Jody said, if there were some that didn't migrate over, they will remain in file archive. So if it's something where it is a corrupt file that you know is not going to ever go over, and you do have a good copy of it, store it somewhere else, I'll show you how you can import that file into a document store. So here's the file archive. If I go back underneath utilities and go into document storage, so here is where they wound up after migration. So again, I've got my monthly reports, and like I said, I just my files, my test files, I just reopened a couple of periods and reclosed and generate the files. So I've got December and January, and I also have my calendar one. So let's just talk about what we're seeing here. And so here's my December, here's my January. And again, this looks very familiar because similar format to what you see in File Archive. Has a fiscal year and the actual month and the fiscal period there. If what these are called in here are they're called collections. So if I needed to go in and create a collection, I would go up to the create option here. So if I wanted to manually go in and create one, I would click on create, and a create collection box will appear. And here's where I can enter in a description for it, which would be this right here, the fiscal year and the month. So once that information is entered in here, I can then, at that time, if I just wanted to set up just the collection name at this point, I could do that and save it. It'll be on here, but obviously it'll be empty. But once I have this information in, if I want to go in and upload documents, I can do that. And I would use this document area here in order to upload that information. And it will load those reports in whatever format that we have available in here. And so I'm basically creating a manual collection is what I would be doing in here. So obviously for, your monthly ones, those will get generated automatically as the months are being closed in USAS. So other might be a good example, maybe where you would create a collection if you need to import something outside that you want to store. In USAS, you can create a collection and then go in, enter in that information. I'm just going to pick on something, auditors info. And then from there, once I'm off of there, should be able then to, let me save it first. And there, here we go. And now I'm able to go in and upload documents. So from here, I go in and upload a document, pull it from my computer and load it in. So as long as it's in that correct file format that we have on the slide, you should be good to go. Okay. We have a couple questions here.
I am answering them in the chat for you, Michelle, but certainly if you want to review them, you certainly can.
Okay. I thought I saw one about the permissions and the privileges. So yeah, and I was going to mention that a little bit later, that you have the same permissions and privileges that you had in File Archive. So perfect. So I'll just let you handle those while I move on. So I'm going to go back to the monthly report tab. And I'm going to go in and just look at each of these, just so, I think a lot of this is review, but I kind of want to share some of this with you. So in here, there is the view option, obviously. So when I click on view, it's going to open up the January reports that were tied to when when the month was closed. So here are all of the reports that came over from the migration. And like Jody stated too, the timestamp is the migration date on here. So it is not the date that was originally created. So it is showing when I ran these 2/19/2026. In here, just kind of looking, I'm not in an edit view. I'm just in a view and not an edit. So at this point, if I needed to go in, let's say there was a corrupt file that didn't come over in the January migration, what I can do is go in here to upload documents and upload that particular PDF file, if I have a good copy somewhere else of it, upload that document and it will load it into this grid. So that's one thing that you can do, is load new documents into an existing collection. So if I click on edit, well, before I do that, also, if I have duplicates, so you may have reports out there that maybe they ran month end a few times and they have 3 different versions of the same file. You know, it's up to you and the district if they want to delete those duplicates, or if they feel like they want to keep them on there for auditing purposes, they can. And they can go in and clean that up now in File Archive. Or if they don't, everything will migrate over, and they could go in and clean up those duplicates in here as well by just going in and selecting that particular duplicate file and clicking on delete. So I'm sure everyone has a lot of time to do something like this, right? But I just wanted to let you know that there is the option to do that. And so if I go into edit, all it's really allowing me to do in the edit mode is change the description up here. So if I wanted to change this to something else, I can. So, and from there, I still have the ability to go in. If I wanted to delete everything, I could click the top button and it would delete all the files within here. And I can still upload documents in edit mode as well.
Hey, Michelle, can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
Is that the ability to delete specific to a role? Because I vaguely remember a conversation that that delete capability could be very dangerous if district users had that ability. So I don't know if that's like specific to that, like an admin role or a district manager role. Do you
Do you
know?
want me? Okay, so I know this is specific to USAS, but there are the file archive roles. The USAS file archive role is a view role, and then there's I believe it's USAS file archive manager or something. The roles that that pertain to file archive, those carry over to document store. And so if they had the permission to delete in file archive, then they will have it to delete in documents.
Okay. All right. So we'll take a look at all those.
And
Okay.
yeah, I think that's pretty well being managed by granting those roles in the district for those that they want to be able to do those things. So, and I was working on a response because Brenda asked a similar question about creating collections and so forth. So the permissions, just so everybody is aware, for document store are the same as they were for file archive.
Okay. Thank you, Jody.
And we can note that too, Vicki. When we do the documentation, we do not have the documentation out there yet for document store. We can also put something in the slideshow that we created. I know I gave you guys the slideshow already. We may need to make some tweaks to it and then have an updated version, create an updated version and put that out there. But maybe we'll add another slide in regards to the roles and stuff, just to remind you guys the different access that people can have to delete and view and all of that. But
that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. The documentation too will, have some of that information in there as well. So once we get that going, we're waiting until document store is released, and then next week we'll be updating the documentation in USAS and payroll and inventory for the new document store option. Okay, so I kind of went through the view and the edit here at the same time. This third option here is uploading a new document to the collection. So I'll just go ahead and just click on it so you can see what it does. And basically I can go in and it knows that, you know, because I'm in that collection already, I can go in and select a file from my computer or drop it in, and it will add that particular file to the collection. So I could go in and open it, obviously, and do the same thing here, but it's just a quicker way of doing that. And then here is the download document. So if I click on download document, it's going to download the entire zip file. So all of the reports in that collection. So if I just want to download a particular one, you would want to open it up first and then be able to do that. So I go ahead and open it. I can go in here and download a single file. And then obviously you've got the scary delete option here. So if you do need to delete a collection, depending on the role that you have, you can delete that in here. So that's available as well. Okay, I know Jody and Robin, everyone has been answering any questions here that are in the chat. Do you guys have any other questions regarding what you're seeing in the document store grid? Okay, and like I said, I've got reports in the monthly. I have reports in the calendar year end. Again, the grid looks the same. It behaves the same way in USPS as well, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. So here are all the different, tabs that were in File Archive that are now in Document Store. If I go to the Migration tab, this is what Jody covered earlier, where she went through and where she submitted the migration job already, and then she went through the log file. So I won't go through that. But what I want to focus on is the search. So this is the what we call the Elasticsearch. So this is basically a way for the user to go in, and it's a flexible searching utility that they can go in and view or search for particular vendors or account codes or any information, particular information they're looking for in any of the reports that are in Document Store. So I kind of feel like this is basically Document Store stores the files, but then Elasticsearch makes them easy to find. So when you click on here, the first thing you're going to notice off to the left here is the filters. So the category is basically the tabs up here. And because it's only listing those three, it's because I only have data in those three tabs. So if I had data in all of these, all of the categories will be displayed. It's just my test data. I only have data in the monthly and the calendar and the other. And so I can, if I just want to look for something, in all of the reports that are listed underneath Document Store, I do not have to filter. But if I want to focus on just one of the tabs and filter on that tab, I can select that particular one. So if I just want to look for the monthly and focus on that, at this point then I would go in and start adding my search tokens. So because I don't have a lot of information in this instance here, I'm just going to let it ride, and I'm going to search on everything. So what I wanted to do and how I wanted to go about this is in the USAS instance, I'm going to do this in both USAS and payroll. But in USAS, I kind of wanted to show you how to use the filtering. And then I think in payroll, I'm going to go more into using some specific scenarios to view information. So let's go through. I'm not going to throw a bunch at you. I'm just going to give you a few. And to be honest with you, it's kind of fun. You go in and you start entering information in here, and then you can see the results, and you can, based on the filters that are available, it does, bring up a lot of good information. So I'm just going to do a basic search on a word. I want to find anything that has the word engineering in it. And it isn't case sensitive, so you don't have to worry about that. And when I click on search, so this is what you're going to see. Now, I know that, this is something for everyone to get used to. And I know that we also, based on feedback, will be making improvements in Elasticsearch. But I kind of want to show you, what you're looking at. So what it did is it produced 23 hits. So it's got 23 different areas in the document store that it found the word engineering in it. So how I look at this is I break it down into sections here. So, and these lines for me are very helpful because then I know what I'm looking at. So if I'm looking at this first section in between these two lines, I'm going to basically go left to right here, really. And it's telling me that it found the word engineering underneath the monthly report fiscal set. So underneath the monthly reports tab in the January 2026 monthly report bundle. And then I have to kind of go up here, and it was under the appropriation summary report. And so I kind of have to kind of look here and then read it that way. Or you can, go in and say, okay, it found it on the appropriation summary report, but which one? Under monthly reports tab in the January report bundle. So that's another way to look at it. And then from here, you're going to see the actual lines on the report where it found that. And so it's showing us here, and this looks to me, because it's an appropriation summary report, that it's showing me that particular appropriation level, count code, and then it's showing me the description of the account, which is capital projects, architecture, and engineering. So that's where it found it. And then it also found it underneath the December appropriation summary report as well. It found it underneath the budget account activity report, underneath the January reports. But this is slightly different here. So it says engineering custodial activity payments. So it's not the account code that it found engineering on. It's finding it under the vendor. So Neville's Engineering is one of the vendors. So it's giving you quite a bit of information as to where it pulled and what it pulled in here. And you'll notice that it loads 5 queries or entries at a time. So down here it says it loaded 5 of 23 results. So in order for me to see the next batch of 5, I would just click on load more results, and it will then throw in the next. So, so that's basically like how to read it. What I want to do is go in and kind of play with this filtering and filter on it a little bit more. If I wanted to clear this altogether, I could click on reset, and it will just clear out everything to allow me to start over. But what I'm going to do now is I am going to pick on, I'm going to still do engineering, but that vendor I was talking about, Neville's Engineering. And again, I don't have to worry about the case sensitivity with this. And I'm doing a search. And so again, it still hit 23. And that's because it is working as an or search when I have a space here. So Neville's or engineering. So same number of hits. And so everything looks pretty familiar with what I had before. And so I've got the engineering that it found. And then I also have Neville's that contains engineering because that's the name of the vendor. And so it displays it there as well. And it finds anything that has Neville's or engineering. And then again, I can look, in here based on what I'm seeing over here to see what report that came from what archive, and then from what period. So I'm going to go in and kind of change this up a little bit. So what if I want to search on anything that has Neville's Space Engineering? I want to find just that vendor name. Right now, it's not going to show me just everything with that vendor name. It's going to show me anything that has Neville's or engineering. So if I do wrap it in quotes as a phrase and then do a search, it's only going to pull in anything that finds Neville's Space Engineering in it. And another thing, and again, we're going to document all of this and explain all of these to you in the documentation, and I believe it's on one of the slides too, so that you get more comfortable with this as well. I'm to be honest, I'm just learning this as well, so I'm still getting comfortable with it. So in here, I can also do a plus. And so what this is going to do is it's going to allow me then to look for anything that has Neville's and engineering in it. And then it's going to pull that information in here. So I think the best thing for everyone to do is just play with this and get more comfortable with it. Try to come up with some good scenarios on like what you know, you're wanting to look for. If I'm wanting to look for an account code, what I would do is I would probably wrap that in quotes. So I'll try that. Here, I think I have one, 300, 590, 690, 5. You have to be careful here. And I'll go ahead and do a search on that. And so what it's doing is it's showing me within there what reports that I have on file contain this account code. So if I look at the first one, which is a budget account activity report from December, it's laying out where this is at. So this is tied to disbursement 91806. And so if I wanted to go in and look up a little more, you know, it's showing me, you know, the cash account that's tied to it, the expended amount, the information about the line item, that's all contained on that budget account activity. It's also showing me where it is on some of our other monthly reports, like our budget summary reports, and giving me the amount information on that, the expendable, the expended, things like that. That's all laid out here. Now, if I wanted to go in and kind of make this more of a, I want to find an account, but I want to find a specific amount that was expended to that account, I could go in and do plus, and I think you do have to be careful to make sure you put in commas, I believe. Got that right. And so that's going to pull up a budget summary report, excuse me, of an expended amount, and it's probably the fiscal to date expended of 9649.31. So as you know, because I'm looking at a budget summary report, a negative budget report as well, it's got that pulled up in here as well. Now, if I put in, like, removed the plus sign and did a search, because this last one I had 2 hits. This next one I have a couple more. And so in here, it is showing me a little more information. Here is one where it looks like, again, the budget activity report, excuse me. And it's showing, you know, this account code, but I'm also seeing, again, this works as an or. I'm also seeing that, you know, there's nothing in here that says 9649.31, but in my appropriation summary report, it pulled this one in because I have this account code or 9649.31. So it doesn't work as an and because I don't have the plus sign. It works as an or. So I just kind of wanted to show you like the different ways to search in USAS. And then I'm, like I said, in payroll, I'm going to show you a couple different scenarios that will help you find something based on what the scenario is. So any questions regarding what you're seeing in Elasticsearch or how it's working?
Hey, Michelle. It's Missy at Omarisa. Can you click on the blue word appropriation summary report.pdf and have the report come up?
Yes, sorry. I was supposed to mention that, wasn't I? Yes, so that's the download. So that will allow you to download the report, Missy, and that you can then view that report in detail. So if I click on it, it's going to ask me to download it, and then I can view that report.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the reminder. Okay, so does this seem pretty, basic here on, what you're looking at? You're kind of, like reading left to right. Okay, this is the appropriation summary report underneath my monthly bundle from December. And then this is what it found on the report. And like I said, we will be maybe possibly if we're able to enhance some of this and once we get more feedback from everyone. Okay, so that is the search capability in USAS. I'm going to move into my USPS instance and show you the document store in there. So I am already logged in to my USPS instance. And again, if I would go underneath File Archive, because I already migrated the data over, and of course it's going to time off me now, this should be empty. Oops. And it is. So everything migrated successfully. And so when I go into document storage, it brought everything over. And we have, I think, some payroll archive information, and I think some W-2 archive information in here. So we just ran a couple payrolls and year-end stuff in order to get that out there for you. So I won't go through these options. They're the same as what you saw before. In USAS, works the same way, and being able to create a collection in here as well. What I do want to do is just show you again, the migration tab looks the same as well. Once it migrated successfully, it produced the log file here that Jody already covered. So I'm going to go into the search. And so again, the categories that display depend on what I have in my tab. So the pay form archive, audits report, they're empty. So that's why they aren't appearing. So obviously, most of this, your districts, they'll have all the different tabs up here displayed as categories. So in here, what I'd like to show you is, like I said, approach this a little bit differently with a couple scenarios. So my first scenario is I just want to see all the information for a particular employee. So I'm going to enter in her name and do a search. And so what it's going to do is it's going to show me all the different reports that contain her name. So she has got her attendance information, her W-2 information here, also the pay amount report, the pay summary report. So a lot of good information, and it shows where it found her on that particular report, and it displays it here underneath the search results. So again, if I continue loading, I just see 5 out of 17. I had 17 hits. I would just click on load more results to go in and view more information. Payment transaction status report. So Rice, it looks like it's Kathy, Monica Rice, I believe is what her name is. And so it just goes in here and shows all of that information regarding Kathy. The other scenario I wanted to show you is, let's say I have a balancing issue and I want to search for a particular dollar amount, I'm off on my Medicare balancing by $10.98. So I'm going to go in and enter $10.98. Got to be careful with that decimal. And do a search. It clears out the old search. I don't have to click reset if I don't want to. And it brings up the new one. So in here again, I've got all the information regarding $10.98, and I can see exactly who that employee was, and maybe it's a situation with her Medicare information. And so it shows me again the payables detail report, and it's showing both in the payable item detail report and the actual payroll report as well. And again, I just have 6 results on here, so there's just one more to load. So like I said, if you did want to filter this down and just select a certain tab, you can do that by going up here first, instead of it pulling from everything in Document Store. And then you can use those different search engines as well in order to filter. Okay. So any questions before I move on to inventory? That's the last one I want to show you.
I have a quick question for you, Michelle. What if I wanted to look for a specific year or date for an employee? Is there a way to do the combination with the year and their name or their ID number?
You should be able to. I would be careful with the date. I don't know if you may need to put that in quotes on this report. I'm not 100% sure. So if you want to put in like 2/20/2026, you may have to do that. Jody, do you know offhand?
I would assume that it would have to be quoted because it's a string.
Yeah.
And it's multiple values. As far as filtering by the year, if you can include it in the search token, that may work for you. We do have a JIRA issue that we will be working. This came up specifically with regard to payroll, but it will be available for all the applications. Where being able to filter and only look for what you're looking for based on a certain year, whether it be calendar year or fiscal year. So that is a functionality that we will be enhancing later. But as far as if the report itself contains the year, you should be able to include that in your search token, and it should help narrow things down.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I do want to take you through, I know that it's 11:15 already. I do want to take you through the Document Store in inventory. Obviously, we all know that there are no reports to migrate. So we don't have to worry about that. So there's no, going in and pushing a migration button in order to migrate. So I wanted to show you what would happen, what it looks like though. So what I did is I went in and for my example, I generated reports for fiscal year 25. And so what happened, so where those are stored is underneath system, there is a document storage. So basically, I closed the year, it generated my report bundle, and it is now available to view underneath document storage. So when I click on that, here you'll see 24. I'll talk about that here a little bit, but I did close 25. And so just looking at the icons available, I'm going to focus on 25 here. I'm going to click on view. And when I click on view, you'll see all of the reports from our fiscal year end report bundle. So those are all listed here. And obviously, if I needed to go in again and import a particular report in here, if I wanted to, I could use the upload option here and it will upload a file in here. If I have a duplicate or something, maybe I uploaded it into the wrong year and I need to delete it, I can go in and select a specific report and delete that report as well. As far as the roles, it will be documented. I don't know what permissions or what role is needed. I'm assuming standard role is what it, oh, Jody's nodding her head. So standard role will allow them to do these things. And so basically that's, what it looks like. It's really clean and easy to follow. If I click on edit, all it's going to do is allow me to edit the description if I needed to do that. So that's really all there is to the actual like view or going in and editing. One thing to keep in mind, if I delete, I'm not deleting a specific file, I'm deleting the entire bundle. So we do have to be careful when we're deleting. And this last option is allowing you to download. So again, it's the entire file. So it'll download it into a zipped format and it will save it that way. So if you're wanting to download a specific report, you would need to go in and view it and then go in and download that specific report in the bundle.
Hey, Michelle. Since we didn't have the option for these report bundles before, we've been, saving them to upload when this is available. However, do you see any problem or any thing that might stop us from opening and closing the fiscal year over again once DocStore is available?
We knew someone was going to ask that, right, Jody?
Sharon, I'm so glad you asked that question. So what we've actually done in inventory is make it so that you can regenerate those reports without having to reopen the fiscal year. Now, before you ask, no, that is not available in USXS and payroll. When we implemented that in inventory, it wasn't a simple, let's just apply it everywhere. So we can certainly maybe address that in the future, but the big need here was for inventory. Now, that being said, this is my disclaimer, and this is documented in the release notes. If you have the old fiscal CDs or the old report, no, sorry, I went too far there because you can't do EIS DD right now. You will be able to, but not yet. So if you have the report bundles, you've been on inventory since 2021 and you saved all these report bundles, please upload what you saved. Do not regenerate, because when the inventory reports were initially written, they were written with the expectation that you would close the year and generate the report and not go back and try and run reports for prior years, expecting it to only grab that data from that year. We do know of a couple of reports that if you go in and run the report for a prior year, those reports are not excluding future transactions. They are the very top of my list. We will be working them very soon. And then once we have those complete, we will let you guys know so that if they want to go in and regenerate those bundles because they need to, because they didn't keep them, then they'll be able to do that. But right now, if you were to go in and do that, I cannot guarantee for this couple of reports that it will only be reporting on that fiscal year's data. So it's important that if you saved them, that you upload them, and then we will let you know when you can utilize that option. If for some reason they misplaced one or it got deleted or they can't find it and they need to regenerate it, please wait for us to give you the green light on that. And that will be explicitly clear in the release notes so that those kind of, you can get caught up on what's missing out there. But again, if you have saved it, please upload what you saved. And we will make sure and communicate as soon as we've gotten those problems eliminated with those reports.
Okay, great. Because that's what I was wondering, if they regenerated, would they match what they actually had? So that was one of the things that was
Yeah.
thinking, well, we could regenerate, but no, I don't know if it would really match what they had before. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
and and it's absolutely imperative that they do. So just hold off on the regenerating, use what you have. And then when we get that cleaned up, we'll let you guys know, and then you can go ahead and just regenerate those. And again, you will not need to reopen the fiscal year. It'll literally just generate the bundle for the year that you specify.
Okay, and on that same line, we've had many school districts that waited until they were audited. They closed the fiscal year, they got the audit report, they had to go back and open the fiscal year and make corrections and then close it again. So we have multiple versions of the same fiscal year. Do you recommend importing all of them or just the last one, or would it be up to the district?
You hit the nail on the head there. I think that depends on what the district wants to do. If they want to upload all copies so that they have documentation on this is where we were at, this is what the auditor told us to do, and now here are the updated reports, I think that's great. It gives them an audit trail, and it gives them, this is the before and this is the after. But certainly that is up to the district.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Sharon, let me kind of show that. That's a good example. So what I did is, so for those report bundles that have been saved, so the one from last year, and let's say I have two different versions of it. And so I'm going to create two different collections. So my first collection here, I'm going to go in, all I did is I just created the collection. So I clicked on create collection and then I named it. Oh, I'm just going to say before audit. And so at this point, I can't upload yet until I create the bundle here. I don't have the option to upload yet. So I click on create. And I wonder if it's because of the fiscal year. Because I have a fiscal year 24 already. Wonder. Oh, Jody, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, probably was good that I was muted. No, I didn't swear, but okay, so
I do have 24 already out here.
I think that it's not a super user friendly error, so we'll have to take a look at that. But yeah, try changing the fiscal year, because I believe
I'll just do 2023 for now, and then click on create. Yeah, that was it. Because if I close out of here, I already have a 2024 report bundle. And so that's why when I tried to create the one from here and put in 2024 as the year, it wouldn't let me because I already have that. So I had to work around that here a little bit and create this. But either way, here, we've got that noted, so we'll look into that. But so in here then, all it did was just create the collection. So if I go into either this, one or my 2024 one, I'll just go back to that and view that. I've got the option. I could either do it over here on the grid and import, or I can go into, that's the download. I go here to the import, and then I go in and upload my file and pull that report bundle in. And it will pull the entire report bundle. But the thing you have to be careful of, and we are noting this, is that it pulls it in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jody, but when I was testing this, if I go in and pull a zip file from my computer and I upload that in, it's just stored as a zip file, and I can't get to the individual reports. So what you're going to have to do on your laptop side is you're going to have to open up that report bundle, copy all of those PDF files in that inventory fiscal year and report bundle, and then copy them and then upload and paste them into the into this collection, and that should work for you. So you can drag them in if you want, or upload them in.
So back to that. So you're saying like if we have a file that's open and we open up the zip, so it lists each PDF individually, we can grab them all at one, all the PDFs at one time with a copy and then upload them all at once.
You got it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So if you just pull in the zip file and I saved it and I try to open it, it's not going to do anything. It just stays in that zip format and I can't open it in here. So you have to do it ahead of time when you're importing them in. And we will note all that so you guys know what to do for those saved report bundles. And then this option here, obviously we got the, I think I already explained all these. We have the delete if you deleted one, and then we have the download that will download the entire zip file and save it on your laptop, and then you can open that, expand that, and get what you need. So if you do need to send, a report bundle to somebody, they don't have access to inventory, but you want to send them the information on the bundle, it's so easy just to go in and download this, and then it will go in and save that as a zipped format, and then you can send it. So no more emailing of bundles. If you have information underneath core configuration with the email addresses listed, I believe it's just going to ignore that information now. Because it's not using that when you close the year to send those bundles. So that's a definite bonus. I think we've all been looking forward to that. So. Ashley asked, will Control A work to copy all files in a zip file to drag and drop them all at once instead of doing them one by one? I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, so if you click on that again, Michelle, we'll just show here one more time. So you've got two options here. If you have your File Explorer window open and you have all of the documents that you're wanting to upload selected, you just grab them, drag and drop, and they'll all just drop right in there. Alternatively, you can click the upload files and that will then open your File Explorer and you can select them all there and then click the open button and it will, it's the same as any other upload option works. You can either drag and drop or you can click the upload files button.
I want to show you what I did here is that it loaded this, but it was a full zip file. So if I go ahead then and try and I'm going to go ahead and close this. I think that was the wrong one. Yeah. And so if I try and open this, you'll notice that it's not allowing me to see all of the PDF files because I just pulled in the entire zip file. So it went a little fast on me on here, but what I can do is open this up first, like I said, and then copy and paste this entire thing and then load it in. And I'm going to use, I think, this one. And again, I'm going to go into, should be able to open this. Select them all. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong there.
What did it, Michelle?
I tried to copy them. Only allow me to
You don't You don't need to do the copy because all the file names are down there in the file name. Along the bottom where it's blue. So you don't actually need to do the like control copy. So you just need to select them.
All right, let me try that again. So, but this is the file that I have the bundle in.
Right. Did you unpack that zip file or is it still zipped?
It's still zipped.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're gonna want to unzip that.
I can
And
probably
it's-
do an extract all here.
Yeah.
All right.
And now
Okay.
you can, there's all your files. So then you should just be able to, you can probably control A or just select them all.
Yep.
And then I can't see the bottom of your window there. Is it just the? Okay, this may or may not work. You may have to, we'll go ahead and try it. I don't think it's gonna work. So if you go over to, if you close or actually this is open. So slide this to the side
Okay.
so that we can see that where you can drag them in. And then you'll close that one. Just say cancel on that one. And then, so if you wanted to do the upload file, if this is what you're trying to show, then click your upload files button again. And then just make sure you're navigating to that, that at the top there, your FY25 reports, not the zip one, but that, yeah. So double click on that one.
Okay.
And now you can control A or select them all, whatever you want to do. So all of the file names end up along the bottom there and then click open and that should work.
Aha.
Yep.
I'm glad we went through this. You can tell I haven't done it yet.
There we go.
There we go. Awesome. So I did not have the file extracted, the zip file. So that was the thing. Once I extracted that, had that in a separate folder, I was able to copy paste it and plug it in here. So that should work for everybody. And now they're all in here.
If you did that again, Michelle, would they all go back in there only with the number 1, like they do in the other archive, the file
But
archive?
have different versions, I believe, right, Jody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Because that could be your before and after.
Right, exactly. I was thinking the same thing when you said that. Okay. Any other questions? Thanks for the tips on the mic. I'm trying to get that file to open.
What timeline do we think we should be shooting for these migrations?
Okay. It's a great question. And right now, we don't want anybody stressing over it. Get started, get going on it. At some point, we will decide, okay, we need to give them a date to try and have this wrapped up by, and you will have runway on that. I'm assuming we'll do at least a 6-month. Hey, if you haven't started on this, please try to get it taken care of. We will eventually remove the file archive, and that'll be done via software release. There's no way to turn that off in the UI. It's not a separate module, it's part of the application. So when we're confident that all of the ITCs have successfully migrated, we will get that removed. And like I said, we're going to give you some time here to do it when you can work it in. And we haven't even talked about what that date is yet, but we will make sure to communicate that with everybody. Like I said, I'm assuming it'll be like hey, 6 months from now, we'd really like to remove this. So if you haven't wrapped that up yet, can you please get that taken care of? So, but again, we're not just going to pull file archive if everything's not migrated. So yeah, you don't have to start on it Monday. But you know, when you can work it in, when things aren't stressful, then certainly you can start tackling them.
I think the key is too, Jody. I mean, they can configure document store, and and anything that they start, producing report bundles on will move over into document store. But the migration of the file archive files, it'll stay in file archive until you actually perform the migration. So when you guys make that plan, that schedule of who you're going to migrate when, it doesn't mean that they can't start using document store from this point on, but the files that are saved in file archive can get migrated over when you have that chance. But like Jody said, file archive isn't going to be out there forever, but maybe that'll help at least for you guys when you start planning these migrations.
Yep. And payroll and USAS, as soon as that module is installed, any job, any monthly close, anything that triggers reports that were previously sent to the file archive, they now just automatically start populating in document storage. We will not add anything more to file archive because we're trying to migrate everything out of it. So once the document store module is installed, everything starts going there. And then when you've got time to get those migrations going, and some of them will be a piece of cake, and some of them, frankly, might be a little bit of a pain. Just because you might have to run the migration a couple of times, there may be some tweaking. And we're really only seeing that with the really, really large objects. I know there's a payroll report that for one district was like 22,000 PDF pages. That's a monster. And so some of those will take some tweaking to get migrated, but we've detailed everything out there and what needs to happen and what needs to be modified. It may take a couple of tries to get that value set correctly so that that document can get migrated, but the bulk of your documents are going to go over pretty painlessly.
Jen, I see you had a question here regarding the W-2 archive and if it's going to automatically flow into ESS. I believe it should, yes, but I will confirm that with Mark. But yeah, it should, that W-2 should then flow into ESS. Now that it's going to be in document store, that shouldn't be an issue. But I will confirm that with Mark on that one.
I believe just from a conversation that I had with Mark, I believe that came up and he did tell me yes, that everything looks good there, but we will certainly confirm that. I'm messaging him right now, so if I can get an answer before we end which we're already a little over, sorry about that. But I'll answer you for sure before we end, if possible.
The rest of these are just, like I said, some FAQs about, what if I uninstall it by accident after I migrated the reports? Will the reports be deleted? Just some other like FAQs regarding USAS and payroll. And we plan to add to this. These are just the few that we came up with here recently. Inventory FAQs and with the migration. So we've got that information in here, how to create a collection if you are trying to import saved report bundles. And then at the end here, these last two slides are just some of the resources that Jody already touched on earlier. We just have the links here again. So the installation, the troubleshooting, the backup restore, document store page, and the release notes. And then, like we said, we're planning on getting document store out today, as well as the other applications on the 2026.1.0 release. And when that all goes out, obviously, we are going to update the user manuals as well, USAS, payroll, and inventory to include the document store feature on those. So that should be going out real soon, hopefully by the middle of next week, so that you guys have that. The last slide is just some future enhancements. I think we talked about a couple of these. I know what Jody had mentioned, EIS, the classic EIS CD reports, not a way to do that right now, but we do have a future JIRA issue out there in order for you guys to import those in. So these are just the ones that we have out here right now. We do not have, you'll notice when we were in inventory, I did not go over Elasticsearch in there because it's not implemented yet. So we do have a JIRA issue here to implement Elasticsearch in inventory. Okay, I know we went way over, you guys. Appreciate everybody staying on and listening to all of this. Do you guys have any further questions?
Not at this time.
Got to process it all, right?
My
All
old
right.
age, it takes a while.
I know what you mean, Melissa. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all. We have been recording this, so we will get this out here on our YouTube channel and in our registration and training page in case you guys want to review it again. So we appreciate everyone, and you guys have a great weekend.
Thanks, Michelle. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.